the worst president in U.S. history. He attacked Iraq under the auspices of the myth about WMDs, which weren't there, a total lie. And now Obama, the other great progressive, decided to keep troops in Iraq and then transfer some to Afghanistan. The war in Iraq never ended. The U.S. caused the civil wars there by breaking down the government and executing Saddam Hussein. The U.S. caused the civil wars there. There was no civil war in Iraq before the U.S. attacked it.
That's right.
So, the U.S. is responsible for the civil war going on there now, and more bombing, more military action will not solve anything. Will solve nothing. When are we going to learn that we have to do negotiations and diplomacy? That's the only permanent solution to international conflicts. I want to lead you on a quick song, and I'll get back to someone else. At our Saturday vigil, we have a sing-along dedicated to Edwin Starr, the great anti-war singer in 1970, who had a song called War. So I want you to sing along with me. The chord, okay, the words of this. I'll go through the words first. War, good God, y'all, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. All right, let's go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. War, good God, y'all, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again. War, good God, y'all, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again. It ain't nothing but a heartbreaker. Friend only to the Undertaker. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. We have so many friends here on this beautiful day who have come here to oppose United States aggression in Iraq and in the region. In Iraq, in Syria, in the region, to oppose United States aggression. I would like to ask that members of all the groups that have come here, because we have groups that have come here, I would like to ask that members of groups that have come here would please pick a person who could come up to the microphone and speak at a little bit greater length. And maybe speak for more than just a minute. Go on for perhaps three minutes and give us a more detailed expression of many different points of view. So those of you who have come here, whether it's Eastern Anti-Drone, whether it's Mass Peace Action, whether it's Justice UJP, whether it's Answer, whether it's Mass Ops, I would like everyone who came here and is ready to speak at a little greater length, give us an opinion, give us many different points of view. I would like to point out that the United States has actually spoken against war and bombing many times. And in fact, the people have a great deal of power to stop these wars when we want to. We did prevent the bombing of Syria approximately a year ago. Both in the United States and in the UK, public opinion was able to stop that. The public has a great realization that we have been scammed by war-making politicians. So I would like to invite those who come up from the groups to speak for a somewhat longer period of time. Thank you. Garrett from NASOPS would like to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out today for this important message of no more interventions through Iraq and Syria. I want to just give a really over the past decade in the Middle East and how we got here today, where we have militants literally conquering Iraq. Back in 2004, Libya was cooperating with us with the war on terror. Libya was going through economic reforms and helping its people. We began funding insurgents and radicals to destabilize that country and take out Muammar Gaddafi. When Muammar Gaddafi was defeating the rebels in his own country, we began bombing Libya and forced his government to collapse. Those same rebels carried over into Syria, and we're funding them in Syria to do the same thing to Assad's government. When Assad's government threatened to handle them and fight back, we threatened to bomb Syria. That was last year. We came out, all the cities in the capital of this country, we demanded no bombing in Syria. We stopped the bombs, but we didn't stop the terrorists. The terrorists are being funded by us. The U.S. State Department has recently released declassified documents detailing the fact that the Obama administration has switched policies of the foreign policy from supporting strong autocratic or dictators to supporting moderate, quote-unquote, moderate rebels and insurgents to destabilize these countries. This problem that we have festered in Libya, that we have festered in Syria, is now conquering swaths of Iraq. What can we do about that at this point? We can bomb Iraq and what? Torture the people and kill hundreds of thousands more? We can fund the Iraqi government and mire ourselves further in the conflict, or we can pull out. We can stop funding these terrorists. We can work with the Iraqi government and give them the information that they need, but keep our military out, keep our dollars out.
Yeah.
And this isn't even just in the Middle East. In the Ukraine, the fascist government that has taken that country, we gave them $1 billion.
That's right.
They are releasing right-wing death squads across that country to crush any Russian supporters. Look at Venezuela. After Hugo Chavez deceased, the new government found itself again in the crosshairs of the United States, again trying to destabilize another sovereign country. The United States is falling apart. Our infrastructure is crumbling.
Right.
We need our money here, and we need to get this blood off our damn hands.
Yeah, that's right.
Hands off Syria, hands off Iraq. Let's focus on our homes. Thank you very much.
Next.
Sophia.
Hi, I'm Sophia from the International Socialist Organization, and I want to say that actually it's really tragic that 11 years ago, a million people marched on the streets in opposition to the Iraq War, and now we're back again. And there's the Democrat who's in office right now actually ran on a campaign to say that he was going to withdraw from Iraq, and this actually shows and has shown that actually what the Democrats and Republicans actually disagree on is a policy on how to intervene in the Middle East, but not the fundamental difference, which is that the Iraqi people have always needed to have their own right to determine their own fates. And now what we're seeing is actually the kinds of lies about what the disaster and this new potential civil war is, which is a lie that Iraq has always been mired in sectarian bloodshed. This is an ancient conflict between Sunnis and Shias, is one of the greatest and most tragic lies to come out, when actually historically Iraq has always had a vibrant and secular history to it, that there are Sunnis and Shias who have intermarried for decades, centuries, and that in the 40s and 50s, the largest mass organizations in Iraq were those based on political agreements around the Communist Party, that actually there still remains 1 million Kurds who live in Baghdad who have never been pushed out by pogroms, that there still have been the most mixed and most vibrant societies, and actually the phenomenon that we're seeing right now, which is extremist and deadly troops have actually, deadly extremist gangs who are unleashing the sectarian violence, has been a very, very recent product of the fact that the U.S. invaded in 2003, immediately set out to change the constitutional and parliamentary structure for the first time in Iraqi history around sectarian religious lines, things that have been so completely foreign in a lot of ways, that there were divisions, but not in such an institutional set of ways, that tens of thousands of Sunnis were explicitly lost their jobs because the U.S. pursued a de-Baathification process after the fall of Saddam that explicitly targeted Sunnis and destroyed their jobs and livelihoods. That they set up Maliki as Maliki's government as their guy in Iraq and allowed this to be unleashed. That they actually funded the Mahdi army, the Mahdi gangs, and the death squads. So all of this disaster that we're seeing right now around the murder of Sunnis and Shias is a direct product of U.S. intervention, and more of it is not needed right now. What the U.S. needs to do is a full and unconditional withdrawal of all of its troops. 275 military advisors. That was the historical line that the U.S. had when it pursued its invasion of Vietnam, was that it was just going to send a few military advisors. We know this was a lie, that the U.S. is not interested in unifying Iraqi Sunni Shias and Kurds because a national Iraqi identity is what they had and that is destroyed right now. What Iraqis need the most is to rebuild their own society free of any intervention and to be able to pursue that. What I think we need to be calling for is actually that the U.S. provide reparations to the Iraqi people for destroying their libraries, their museums, for stealing their national archives, which are still retained at the Hoover Institute in Stanford. These are historical archives that are no longer in the possession of Iraqi people, that actually there's been 5 million, a quarter of the population has been displaced as refugees. Can you imagine how many tens of millions of Americans that would come out to? That the U.S. actually has an obligation obligation to allow refugees into the country, Iraqi refugees, as a result of its own disasters in the region, and that it actually completely withdraws all financial support for some of the primary and most vicious backers of sectarianism in the Middle East. That is the Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates and Qatar, who are actually funding these, and the U.S. is funding them. And so we need to demand that those policies come out and that the U.S. Completely withdraw and has no say in the future of Iraq. And we know, based on history, that the Iraqi people have a very proud history of standing in solidarity with each other, of historically some of the proudest incidents of actually fighting anti-Semitism. It has, historically in the 40s and 50s, women were in positions of both, positions, political ranking, but also the most highly educated workforce in Iraq. And it has all completely been destroyed as a result of 30 years of U.S. intervention. We are talking 500,000 children who were killed in U.S. sanctions in the 90s as a result of Clinton's policies, and 2 Gulf wars. And what Iraq needs right now is its own space to breathe and its own fighting chance to develop itself once again, and for the U.S. to completely be removed from that. And actually, for the American people, they will actually say over 50% of the budget of the U.S. is on the Pentagon. Why is that? Why is there a war on public education right now? And why is there a cut school busing in this city where they say we don't have the funds for this money? That is bullshit. Why are actually our schools being privatized and closed and shut down? And healthcare is a complete disaster. Why is that not a human right? Why are homeless people, the homeless population in this country, greater than the number of houses, or less than the number of houses actually being built? Why are there these scarcity disasters happening at the same time as the U.S. continues to pursue drone strikes and military interventions around the world? And we need to have that conversation again and oppose more military intervention. Thank you.
Duncan, UJP.
Hi, I'm Duncan. I'm from UJP, United for Justice with Peace. And I can remember being out here in Boston in August and September of 2002 when we started to build what was, within a few months, a huge anti-war and movement for peace. And I can see that we're starting again. And if the Obama administration continues to escalate its aggression and attacks on Iraq, I think the peace movement is more ready than it was then to again build a huge anti-war movement. So this is one of the first steps. But I would like to say this is going to be a different kind of war. The empire is shifting its tactics. It has the same strategy of domination, the same goal, but the strategy is the same, but the tactics are shifting to so-called covert or dirty war. The empire doesn't have the resources to send in 150,000 troops like it did 10 or 12 years ago. It's in a state of decline, partly because of our efforts. It doesn't have the money or the support to do that. You're not going to see shock and awe massive bombing. But this time what we see is a kind of covert war or dirty war, or in other words, special operations, intelligence units, drones, intimidation, threats and intimidation such as the aircraft carrier in the Persian Gulf. Attempt to use the troops of other armies and the resources of other countries to accomplish our aims. So there are already hundreds of U.S. military advisors and special operations personnel in Iraq. Well, what are they doing? It's not being reported by the press. What actually is happening? This is kind of a below-the-radar type operation for the U.S. to try new ways to achieve its goals. So I think this is a challenge. I think that the peace movement and the anti-war movement needs to develop new ways of getting information from a covert war. I think there's an importance in education, because the Obama administration is going to try to keep this under the radar and out of the press, and so we don't know what's going on. And so I think that we need to, I think there's an educational component. Part of this movement is going to be important. And I think UJP is going to be sponsoring an educational program soon to address some of these issues. So again, it's great to see everybody out here. And no war in Iraq, no bombs, no soldiers, no drones. The U.S. military is the cause of the problem, and it is not the solution.
Okay, we have Virginia Pratt from the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say it's an honor to be here because there's a group called the Commission on Human Rights that has been out here for maybe 13, 14 years, who called attention to Gulf War I, the sanctions that followed Gulf War I on the people of Iraq, and then also opposition to Gulf War II, the U.S. second war on Iraq. I just want to say that coming from Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, a women's peace group, an international women's peace group that's been around for close to 100 years, regrettably we're still in business. Although I agree with Duncan that we have good news is we're still in business, and the bad news is we still need to be in business. That the challenges are new, but I'd like you for a minute to engage me in something that would be a little bit retro to Occupy, and something that would be a little bit retro to the peace movement's war in Vietnam, and something that is very WILF, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, goes by WILF. So if you could say after me, it will be a great day.
It will be a great day.
It will be a really great day. It will be a great day when our schools have all the money that they need. The Air Force has to have a bake sale to build a bomber or to build a drone. So here we are. Duncan's right. It's not going to be like the war in Vietnam, and it probably won't be like Gulf War I and II. But there'll probably be plenty of those things, those drones, the instruments of cowards flying overhead. And how can we be proud of that? Can we be proud of our use of drones? I mean, really. So, coming from the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, one of the things that we focus on is the effects the wars on women and children. And one of the core beliefs is that whether we're from the U.S., whether we're from the UK, whether we're from Saudi Arabia, whether we're from Pakistan, whether we're from Afghanistan, or whether we're from Iraq, we're all human beings, and we all deserve the same rights under the Declaration of Human Rights. And that our real security does not come from the military. Our real security comes from things like good jobs, good schools, safety net, addressing income inequality. That's where we have our real security. And I think if we look at what's happened in Iraq, what happened with Gulf War I, what happened with the sanctions, and what happened with Gulf War II is there was a tremendous brain drain in the country. The doctors left the country, the middle class left the country, the people who could afford to leave the country very rationally left the country to not live in a war zone. So who's left? And what forces are left? And so now we have a country where the hospitals don't have the doctors, the hospitals don't have the supplies, etc. And is this a country that's going to be helped by a bombing campaign in this state where there's not even electricity around the clock? I mean, this is just ludicrousy. Look what happened in Libya. Was that a success? I mean, where we use that kind of technology? Is that a great place now that their so-called dictator was killed by our forces? No. So the approach has to be different. The other reason that, again, retro war is not good for plants, animals, or other living things, is that when we have war, we also have a tremendous amount of violence against women. We have a lot of starvation, and the family structure falls apart. The children don't go to school, the farms aren't farmed, and the society can't function. And thank you all for coming out to say no to all of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. Next up is Frank Neiser from the International Action Center.
Thank you very much. No bombing, no military aid, no advisors, and no troops to Iraq. No U.S. involvement whatsoever. Self-determination for the Iraqi people. The International Action Center was founded by Ramsey Clark in response to the first Gulf War, and carried out tribunals and investigations into that, and proposed the second Gulf War, and is still fighting all U.S. intervention, military and otherwise, in the whole of the Middle East. It's the U.S. that caused the problem, and that is the problem. And the forces that are carrying out attacks are a creature of the U.S. and their war for regime change in Syria. Everything about the situation is to be laid squarely on the footsteps of the White House and the U.S. War machine. So they've killed 1.5 million Iraqis during the war and occupation, and 500,000 more been displaced from their homes. And on top of that, the sanctions before that killed 500,000 Iraqi children. This is not a resume that speaks well for humanitarian aid or providing any kind of help to anyone. The only help the U.S. can be is to get out of there and have nothing to do with it.
That's right.
Fortunately, the American people have caught on about the U.S. wars. They're fed up with the syndrome of endless war, and they were against the Libyan war, they were against the war in Syria, and our public opinion actually put a stop to a full-blown war against Syria. And we need to, but it's a silent, passive opposition. That's what people think, but people are not moving on it. And it is all part and parcel of the global economic crisis of imperialism. They're fighting these wars to prop up their economic system, which is falling apart on a world scale. It's up to us to mobilize people and make the connection between the economics and the war at home and the war abroad. All of, as Martin Luther King said, the bombs that they are dropping by drones in Iraq are exploding here in the United States, in our big cities, and in Detroit, where they have cut thousands of people off of water and are expecting them to live without sanitation or water, which is a violation of human rights. And the people in Detroit are appealing to the United Nations for relief against the U.S. and the city of Detroit. So our job is to mobilize the sentiment into an active, broad, massive anti-war movement to put a stop to this new U.S. war initiative and all future initiatives, and also claims back the economic system and builds one that's based and pointed toward economic justice and human needs, and not the Pentagon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Okay, next up I'd like to introduce Dale Smoke from the Eastern Mass Anti-Drones Network.
Thank you, and we are we're Chelsea Manning.
We are the Eastern Massachusetts Anti-Drones Network, a task force of UJP, United for Justice with Peace, and we work to oppose and educate people on the uses of drones. Drones have been used, weaponized and surveillance drones in undeclared war zones since 9/11, and they have killed several thousand people. The majority of them have been civilians. Certainly not combatants. Even by the U.S. government's own estimate, only about 2%, maybe 50 of the casualties are so-called high-level targets. That's even by their definition. And with the possibility of another intervention in Iraq, the government, the administration is floating the idea publicly, I guess to test public opinion, on the use of drones there. We already have drones being used in several undeclared theaters of war. And what happens with, you have unmanned drones, they've been doing what they call signature strikes, which are strikes based not on identification of people, but on behavior patterns. And the civilian casualty rate is much too high. There are many documented instances. I mean, you can look on sites like the Bureau for Investigative Journalism and ProPublica, where you can see many documented cases where you've had villages that were neutral or even pro-American turned anti-American because for no reason that they can discern, a drone comes along and kills, you know, a few dozen civilians, a wedding party, a village meeting, something like that. There's no need to see this repeated in Iraq. The Iraqis should be determining their own destiny anyway. The Americans don't need to intervene there. It's pretty well documented that, you know, the Americans, when they're using drones like this, are creating enemies faster than they can kill them, as if killing everybody who is against you is even a viable or a moral policy anyway. So I would suggest that people, you know, go on the, you know, if you want to educate yourself further, there's a 1-hour film called Unmanned, America's Drone Wars by Robert Greenwald. It's on YouTube. You can see that for free. You can watch Jeremy Scahill's Dirty Wars, not on YouTube, but you can find that. You know, that got Academy Award nominations. You know, this covert Dirty Wars thing, which is about to be extended to Iraq if the people don't oppose that, is not a good thing for this country. It's creating a race that the Americans will lose over time. We don't want to see it. You know, we're for peace here. And thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dale. Next up is Beth Summers, who's active with the American Public Health Association.
Thank you so much. Healthcare is a right, not a privilege. It is great to be here speaking on behalf of folks not only in this country but around the world who support health care as a basic human right. One of the first targets in war are healthcare workers, hospitals, and the health infrastructure. One of our dear public health colleagues, Dr. Ahmad Al-Hadidi, almost lost his sight based on impact from another bomb raid. Then his 12-year-old nephew had the same experience. The closest pediatric ophthalmologist they could find in Iraq was in Egypt. There was no pediatricians left. All of you have friends, all of you have family. I believe we have a choice about war. Tell them no to war, yes to peace, promote public health. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Next up is Rosalie Anders from the Cambridge Climate Action Network.
Hi. You know, we know pretty well that the Iraq war originally was about oil, right? And, you know, our engagement with the Middle East has been mostly about oil. I'm here to say that it's time for the climate activists and the peace activists to get together in a really powerful way and say, we need positive solutions to this. We are all in this together, and the issues are, you know, are linked so intimately. Right now, we also know that an awful lot of the unrest in the Middle East has to do with drought. drought that led to so much unrest in Syria, drought that led to so much unrest in North Africa, and this drought is still going on. And people are going hungry, and unrest will continue. And this is going to happen all over the world. So I encourage us all to think about positive actions, getting off fossil fuels here, land restoration in the Middle East, an international effort that's not about war, but it is about peaceful cooperation and restoration that we all desperately need.
Thanks, sister. Okay, is Chris Gonsalves here? Chris Gonsalves. Okay, we're going to have to come back to him, I guess. Chris Gonsalves. Okay, is Zaki here from the Syrian American Forum? Zaki.
Hi, my name is Zaki Makdisi. I am a dentist. I practice in Massachusetts I've been here almost 20 years. I came back from Syria about 2 years ago. I had to move back. And for sure it was not a peaceful demonstrations. There were weapons since the first minute. And what I'd like to say now is we shouldn't really support what's called the moderates or the rebels who are the moderates. Personally, no matter if we're with the Syrian government or not, we should stop the war. We should push for peace. And this money that is being spent on weapons and supporting those what are called rebels should be, we can use it here for health care, to find more jobs for the American people, and we should push for more peace in the area. This is the only solution at this point that I could see, is to put some pressure on those regional countries that are supporting the rebels in Syria, and push them for more peace talks and have, like a government that will represent all the parties involved. Thank you for listening, and God bless you.
Okay, thank you, Zaki. Give him a big hand. Okay, next up is Chris Gonsalves from the Answer Coalition.
Iraq for Iraqis! Troops out now! Iraq for Iraqis!
Troops out now!
Iraq for Iraqis!
Troops out now!
Iraq for Iraqis!
Troops out now!
Iraq for Iraqis!
Troops out now!
Good afternoon, sisters and brothers. My name is Chris Gonsalves, and I'm a volunteer organizer with the Answer Coalition, which stands for Act Now to Stop War and End Racism. When I look back at the situation in Iraq, back in 2003, when the U.S. invaded, I was only 17 years old. I was living at home in New York City at the time, and I was very confused. I didn't understand why the U.S. was waging war in a country overseas. I didn't understand why my friends, why young people I was growing up with were being sent abroad to kill other poor people because they didn't have the opportunities, the educational opportunities, the job opportunities, and so they felt forced to enlist in the military. And then I look at the situation now, over the past 13 years, 14 years, 15 years, and what has happened in Iraq. Millions of people have been killed. Millions of people have been injured. Millions of people have been forcibly displaced from their homes. At one point, 1 in 3 Iraqis, 1 in 3 were either killed, injured, or displaced because of U.S. war in that country. I look at the situation here at home, and there are millions of young people across the country without jobs, without the opportunity to go to school, because billions of dollars are being spent overseas. Billions of dollars are being spent on war, on bombs, on bullets, instead of right here at home on what we need here, on healthcare, on housing, on jobs. Young people across the country are indebted just to try to get an education. Student debt is the highest it's ever been in this country. And yet we spend all of this money on war abroad. We spend all of this money just for the interest of the rich. This is a rich man's war that poor people pay for, that poor people fight in, and that poor people die in. Whether it's us here in the U.S. or whether it's young people and civilians in Iraq or other countries like Afghanistan. You know, When this war started in 2003, like I said, I was confused. I didn't understand why my country, why the United States was doing this. And over the course of that war, I saw on television the shock and awe, the so-called shock and awe invasion. It seemed like a movie to me. On CNN, on all the cable stations, all they were showing were just bombs being dropped overseas, and it seemed like an action movie. And it was over that period of time that I became more and more angry, more and more frustrated. Like I said, I saw young people joining the military being sent overseas to fight and die in a rich man's war. And it didn't really hit home to me until 2003, when a young person that I grew up with, unfortunately who I hadn't seen since I was about 13, 14 years old, was killed in Iraq in 2007. He joined the army in 2004 because he saw no other option for himself. And that's the same for young people across this country that join the U.S. military. This is an economic draft. We look back at the war in Vietnam, and we look at this situation today, and the situation is the same. And so we have to take the lessons from the people's movement that stopped and ended the war in Vietnam. We have to take those same lessons and we have to apply them here today. And we have to all come together. Whether you're fighting against foreclosures and evictions, whether you're fighting against deportations and detentions, whether you're fighting for good jobs and quality public services in your community, we have to all come together and join together and take a stand against this new war in Iraq. We have to stand against all U.S. wars, whether it's in Iraq, whether it's in Afghanistan, whether it's in U.S. intervention in places like Venezuela, overseas into Ukraine, whether it's drones dropping bombs on poor people in Somalia. They're all the same. Because the same people that are waging this war in Iraq are the same people that are bankrupting our communities. And so I want to thank all of you out here today for coming together and taking this stand. And I hope to see all more of you out here in the streets in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Next up is Thea Paneth from Arlington United for Justice with Peace.
Arlington, yeah!
Okay, this is not the first time we've gathered here together in rage, in pain, in grief and sorrow because of the U.S. waging a war. The turmoil in Iraq right now is a direct result of a U.S. war. From the 1991 bombing that destroyed Iraq's infrastructure to draconian sanctions that killed 500,000 children, through the 2003 shock and awe bombing, the Iraqi people have known unbearable horrors. Millions have been displaced and at least 1 million have died. The history of the war is being rewritten. Please remember, U.S. troops left Iraq in 2011 because of a status of forces agreement that was signed by Bush in 2008, not because Obama withdrew the troops too soon. And I'm not any fan or supporter of the president with the kill list. But we have to know the real history. One of the consequences of U.S. wars is that the Middle East is reshaping, and the end result is the U.S. is going to have a lot less power. And this brings us to a very dangerous moment. What will be the response of our destructive rulers as they realize they can no longer rule in the manner they are accustomed to? The horrors, the terrors of war, the war-making, the warmongering, the selling of armaments, the airstrikes, the drone strikes, the nuclear weapons, the lies, the insane fantasies, and the fomenting of hatred, the making of a fellow human being into an other who may be tortured or killed. It has to stop. It all has to stop. Human beings on planet Earth are at a crossroads. We have to learn to live with each other and love each other and put all our efforts into saving this struggling planet. As a member of Arlington United for Justice with Peace, I am always grateful to stand with you. Standing for peace and justice has never been more crucial, and my own personal pain and sorrow would be absolutely unbearable if we didn't stand out in these ways as a result of this country's malign policies. And I always say, never give up and never give in.
Thank you, Thea. Now, we have some more signs, so if you're not holding a sign, please come and select one so that we can be very visible and get our message out. Our next speaker is Andy Moxley from Socialist Alternative.
Thanks for coming out, brothers and sisters. I'm not much for making speeches. I don't really like to speak, but I think this is an issue that I have to force myself out of my comfort zone and come out and speak out against. I grew up outside of Fort Bragg in North Carolina, where several of my fellow high schoolers went to war in Iraq for the first time, and several of them that I knew and grew up with died. And it's appalling to me that supposedly a progressive president, Barack Obama and the Democratic Party, who ran on a platform of hope and change, is basically continuing the Bush regime agenda and trying to bomb and reinvade Iraq. It's absolutely disgusting to me that people I grew up with are being lined up for cannon fodder in another imperialist war of the 1%. And that's what we think in Socialist Alternative, all of these wars that are going on right now. Iraq, and we shouldn't forget Afghanistan. There are still troops stationed in Afghanistan and other areas around the world where the U.S. 1%, the Republicans, the Democrats, are trying to enforce their will through foreign policy and U.S. imperialism on the peoples and working class and poor of all countries around this world, including our own. But what gives me hopes, brothers and sisters, is the fact that I've seen the working class and the young people of the United States and internationally in the Arab Spring, in Occupy Wall Street, in all of the union struggles that have been going on, stand up to the agenda of the 1% on a local, regional, national, and international level and say no to their agenda. And that's what I'm here for to say. And that's why I'm here today, is to rally in solidarity with that, saying no, we won't fight a rich man's war. In fact, we need to fight the rich and not their wars. We need to fight capitalism and move ourselves to a democratic system of governance based on people's control of their own lives. We need to move towards a socialist alternative for the international working class and youth in the United States and around the world. No to war, no to the 1%, yes to taking control over our own lives.
Thanks, brother. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Next up is Paul Anders from Feisty Doves.
Well, I've seen this sign around a lot, and it's a great message. War is not the answer. But what is the answer? We have an answer supplied by the Hawks, and that is military preparedness. And why is that a popular answer? Well, because occasionally there are invasions and occasionally there are coups d'etat. So it's not as if there's a zero need for defense. But opposed to the Hawks are the Doves. And traditionally, pacifism was if you were attacked, you would answer with nonviolence. However, nonviolence, if it's not sufficiently active, is not powerful enough to deter attacks or to meet attacks should they occur. But throughout history, there have been numerous examples of nonviolent action successfully countering attacks. So we need the Doves, but the Doves need to be feisty. We can't just turn over and let aggressors walk over us. So we not only have to oppose war when it occurs, as in Iraq or in Vietnam,
I got the box over by my bike.
but we have to be prepared to ourselves defend our freedom and our liberty, and to encourage people in other countries to do the same. And that is the aim of Feisty Doves, a nonviolent defense. And here in Boston, we have one of the leading proponents of nonviolent defense, Dr. Gene Sharp, the founder of the Albert Einstein Institution, who has written numerous books, and whose organization, the Albert Einstein Institution, has a great website with many materials that are available for free download. So if you want to educate yourself on this tactic, just go to that website, the Albert Einstein Institution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. And I'd like to introduce Kevin from the Committee for Peace and Human Rights.
How's it going, folks? I got a little rap this time. This isn't my views, but this is the personification of America. It's a song by Company Flow called Patriotism, and shows the state of mind of the people behind the empire. I'm the ugliest version of passed down taxing capitalism, rapping MC's perversions. I'm America. The bleeding heart liberal dribble gets squashed by the bomb patriot hearts of makers of devious hearts. I'm America. The bitchy little dogs can't even phase my basic policy. The bombs are smarter. Ronald Reagan's crush carters with Bay of Pig tactics, turning young men into martyrs. Come to my happy promised land, smiley face, opportunity, cipher, then jump on the CoFlow pension plan of proletariat crushing, State of the Union between serpentine words of mass confusion, of media-controlled blurb advertising, disillusionment. Your family will love my low-rent, low-life, no-brain reality dagger movement. Hop over the border for amusement and try to test the waters that the other slaughter crews paid all their dues in. You up against Jesus freaks, forming corporations and young Republicans, indelible NATO forces, hidden agendas, and puppet governments. I'm loving it. Keep the people guessing who I'm running with. Control the population and hide behind sacred covenants. Effing with me, we burn wildlife in gasoline seas till it's an automagnetic third world with metal plates in your knees. Can't you hear the disenchanted screams hidden by Gabriel's new wind instrument playing in flat C? See, I replace humans with robots in a GM factory, then export metaphors to sweatshops for the price of satisfactory. What language is that? I'm anguished in fact. Hit him with a star-spangled banner that you got for crowd management.
Yeah!
Speak loud and get enshrouded in a hot cloud of harassment by the crowd of a mental pedestrian checkers. And smash your subordinate skulls, then update the file in your dental records. You try to get elected, but the crowd is my paid hecklers. Boo! You just stepped into the spectrum of paranoid word wrangling, thinking you sick with a silhouette. See, I'm America. I'm from where the pain grows like poppies, and the field of dreams that you paid for will burn down if operated sloppily. Copy? See, my economic sanctioned rhyme style will get you scraping for rice and riding in a pre-1960 jalopy. My favorite flavor of gas is mustard. I'm America arrogant. Terminus verbal curfew murders. See, you either purchase my products or you worthless. That's my service. Don't look into the oculars of a daylight saver, eraserhead city monument defacer, comprised of droids sent into the void, filled with lead lining, paid for by the bureaucrats of automatic twisted rhyme timings. See, you're guaranteed nothing but my fat little finger that lingers 1 inch over the big button. Let's start this. I'm sarin gas. Hide in your apartment. I'm stealth like a robot hidden in the fat asshole of Cartman. And give a prickly F like sand shark skin condom. I'm America. Treason will not be tolerated. You have been inducted into a lifestyle that you may not change. So you can't be happy, but smile for the cameras. How do you feel about that, folks? I don't feel like that controls any of me.
Right.
I'd like to stand up to that BS. That's their mind state. We need to stand up to that crap.
Right.
That's what they think. What do we think? We think end the wars.
Yeah.
End the wars in Iraq, end the wars in Syria, shut down NATO.
Yeah. Shut down the Pentagon.
Bring light and transparency to what they're doing. The freedom fighters in Syria have crossed the border, so now they've become jihadi terrorists, and they're the same people. I thought we were at war with Eurasia. Thank you.
Free them all. Free everybody.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm Cole Harrison from Massachusetts Peace Action. We're a statewide grassroots organization, and we're part of a national peace action network with affiliates in 30 states. Last fall, the president wanted to bomb Syria, you remember?
Yeah, I remember that.
And you remember that he did not bomb Syria. That the people left, right, and center stood up and with one voice said, no, don't do that. We don't want another Middle East war. And the power structure had to listen. They're intervening in Syria, don't mistake me. They're sending covert aid, they're sending weapons, but we were somewhat able to restrain what they wanted to do. We have to repeat that, brothers and sisters, in the situation in Iraq. President Obama announced that he announced this week he was sending 275 troops to protect the American assets in Iraq. Do you know that embassy in Baghdad is, I believe it's the biggest embassy in the world. It looks like a fortress. If that is a diplomatic mission, I would like to sell you a bridge. Because there are so many things going on in that so-called embassy, that is not really a diplomatic mission. That's an intelligence headquarters. That's an interference and intervention headquarters. Then after that, he announced he was sending another 300 troops. This group of special forces are supposed to work with the Iraqi forces and pick targets for aerial bombardment. So they have already said that they're going to have air attacks on Iraq. And they have also said that they will extend those air attacks into Syria if they find the targets in Syria. So we are on a slippery slope. We are faced with a very dangerous situation and escalating violence in the Middle East when the U.S. is involved. We have to stand up against that. We know that the people are with us. The majority of Americans do not want military intervention in the Middle East. They don't want us to take one side in the Civil War. They want us to send in our diplomats and not our troops. Last week, I think it was Thursday in Congress, Barbara Lee had an amendment to prevent funds to be sent for military action in Iraq. That amendment got 160 or so votes. It didn't pass, but part of Congress is listening. We have to redouble our protests. I need you guys to go back and hold more vigils in your communities. We can't just vigil at Park Street. We have to vigil everywhere.
Washington.
I need you to go back and write letters to the editor. We have to get into the press. We have to show that people are against this military intervention, and it must stop. It must be reversed. Now, last week, the House of Representatives passed the defense appropriation for next year. Over $500 billion. The Pentagon has bases in over 100 foreign countries. Iraq is only one of those countries where the United States is intervening with military force. We have to roll that back.
For the Muffin Man.
We have to redirect those funds to education, schools. We need job creation. We need public health. We need transportation. We need action on the climate crisis. Our country has needs that has to be taken care of. Our people have needs.
Right.
We don't need to be spending $500 billion on the Pentagon.
That's right. That's the thing. That's right.
Thank you, brothers and sisters. And now I'd like to introduce Paul Shannon of the American Friends Service Committee.
Back to Iraq?
Yeah!
Are you crazy?
Yeah!
We don't know yet the impact that this new war in Iraq will have. We do know that once again, this attack will open up the jaws of hell for the people of Iraq. How much should people have to go through? While we may not know all the results of this war, this new war, or where it's going, we do know one thing. We do know that those here who are unemployed because of this war will not receive their unemployment benefits.
That's right.
We know that people who have no housing, who are being driven out of their homes by these outrageous rents that have swept the whole area, that these people will not have a place to live.
That's right.
We do know that those who have been cut off food stamps, they will not be fed. We know that. That will come from this war.
That's right.
Our first war in Iraq, actually our third war in Iraq, from 2003 to 2009,
91, really.
cost $1 trillion. The people who put us into that war by deliberately lying through their teeth.
More criminals.
They knew that they could then turn around and say, because of all this money we've spent, we have a deficit. We have to cut jobs in this country. We have to cut vital public services. We have to cut everything that's good.
Except the police. Except the police.
When they go into Iraq, do they ever say, we'd like to do this, but we don't have the money? Of course they have the money. They're swimming in money. A decent tax structure would provide billions and billions of dollars to meet the needs, to make this country what it could be.
Yeah.
We will continue to stand against not only this slaughter, not only sticking our nose into every battle that comes up. Of course, you would think they're going in now because of this extremist group.
Baloney.
That extremist group only exists because we did go in.
Yes, that's right.
When we tore apart Iraqi society.
Right.
When we killed 300,000 people and saw another 300,000 killed by these mad bombers over there.
Yeah.
That's why this problem exists in the first place. And now the same people who are responsible for those criminal acts, who have gotten away with it, who have not been brought to international tribunals, those same people dare to say that we have to go in to save the Iraqis.
No.
This is a new level of hypocrisy and deceit, the likes of which the world has never seen. But more people are catching on to these guys. More and more people are catching on to these guys. They are sick of hearing that war is the answer to every problem. They know it doesn't work. There's a bunch of people out there, more and more people. It is up to us to put those people together and to say, get out of Iraq, reduce the Pentagon budget, fund the people of this country who are suffering, who need decent jobs. That is our job, and that's what we're going to do. Thank you.
I'd like to take just a moment. We have a fellow veteran here. His name is Stuart and I'm going to pass the mic to him and give him a few moments to say something. And when we leave here, honestly, go out there and perform a random act of kindness. Show your love towards humanity. Make sure that you know that people feel the warmth and the love that all human beings are capable of showing each other. So here's my fellow veteran, Stuart.
Hello, America. I'm sorry I sound like this, but I'm a service-connected veteran, and I need to get a message to you. That message is, we need to take care of America and take care of America's veterans. Nowhere else in the world can people just go and set up residency and get food stamps and get disability and get housing, but in America. If you're not from those foreign countries, they shut the door on you. But America and America's politicians are giving away money to all these foreign countries just to be liked, while people like me.
Tell it, brother. Come on.
We're with you. We're with you.
Go ahead.
I've been paying my taxes since I'm 14 years old, and I get denied for disability. They tell me I can be a stock boy. I'm a veteran. I'm service connected, and they cut my food stamps. America, it's time to wake up and start taking care of your own before you try to take care of the world. I pray you all start exercising your right to vote and leave that damn six-pack and that TV alone, and start learning what politics is all about. We're supposed to be a society of the people, by the people, and for the people. That's screw our own people.
Yeah, baby. Revolution.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, please, and help them out of their drought and got them some seeds and got them some food. You would be surprised how quickly things would change. Instead of enemies, we would be friends forever.
Right.
And we could do that all over this world. We need to bring our people home. We need to take care of our veterans. We need to take care of our citizens. And the best way we can do that, please, and help them out of their drought and got them some seeds and got them some food, you would be surprised how quickly things would change. Instead of enemies, we would be friends forever.
Right.
And we could do that all over this world. We need to bring our people home. We need to take care of our veterans. We need to take care of our citizens. And the best way we can do that